Well, hello everyone, and thank you for coming back to the channel. Today I am going to talk about these two chairs with the kind of wicker seats. My mother and father went to the local grocery store and they said, Paula, you need to go find these chairs. And I said, why didn't you just get them for me? And they said, we didn't know if you wanted to keep them. So I said, okay, well, show me where they are. And they were sitting by the side of the road by the garbage before garbage pickup. And since they were solid wood, I thought, sure, let's take them home and see what we can do with them. So first of all, I had to take off the seat part. They were crushed, and I don't really like this look anyway. I like when they're really woven by hand, not like this. So I took them off, and it was a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be, but with some strength, I did remove the seats. Then I thought I had all of the kind of nut removers, like a wrench and things like that. However, they were given away. So I had to use this wrench, which isn't really for this kind of use. However, it worked very well. And these nuts have probably been on this chair for, I don't know, 40 years. They were rusty, they were dirty. And so I took off the big lug nuts, and then I took off the small screws. Eventually, I replaced these with black screws because I paint two portions of the chair with the wonderful black paint that I found at Lowe's for $2 for the half of the container, which I just think that paint was amazing. So I did take off the parts and I numbered them. And in reality, the back part, that was a good idea, but for the side supports, I didn't really have to number them because the shadow or discoloration of the chair after so many years, it was obvious to see which one went on which side, and that's because it is wood and the oil polyurethane or whatever's on the outside from 40 years ago discolored it, so it was very easy to figure out which side went on which side. Now the chairs, I am taking the legs off, and here is a rookie mistake. This is the first chair I've ever taken apart, and on the very tippy top of the legs where it attaches to the seat, on one side there's one little mark that the manufacturer made, so if you put the chair in correctly, it will line up. On the other side, there are two. Did I pay attention to that? No, I didn't. I did also notice that the very back of this where I'm standing right now, there was a nail, and I thought somebody had tried to fix it. Well, that actually wasn't the case. Of course, it's a piece of wood that has to attach it at some parts. So at the very back, it was attached, and whoever made this, the manufacturing, I do not know the company, they had made it like a V that would fit into itself, and then they put a tiny little nail into it. So that's the original, and I found that out because after doing the second chair, it was the same thing. But I did put some glue in there to keep it together because it was a little bit loose, and then I continued sanding all of the pieces. I did do both chairs, but I'm only showing the sanding of the one chair because it's pretty similar. The biggest problem with these chairs were the seat that was damaged, the kind of orangey yellow of the wood after so many years of being discolored, and the filth. Where any of the parts were attached to other parts, there was a bunch of gook that was in between. So I made sure I cleaned all that off, and then I tried to just make it look as nice as possible. I do have two sanders. However, both of those sanders don't really seem to work as well as I think they should. So most of the work I'm doing, I am sanding by hand, as you can see here. Now this is about ×8. So this is a lot faster than I would normally sand. And that's one of the things I've found out is, oh my goodness, this takes a lot longer than I think it should. So for those of you who want to flip furniture for profit, there is quite the learning curve and things take a lot longer than I think they're gonna take. My next door neighbor, she was an upholsterer and actually a furniture flipper for years. So she comes over every morning, gives me comments about what I'm doing, and she said, oh yeah, I wouldn't even do these projects. It's not worth the money for selling it. However, I do get a joy out of fixing things up, and if I don't sell them, I'm okay with that because I didn't realize growing up that most of the furniture in my family's house is not solid wood. It's the press board. So what I've been doing is if I like something, then I remove the press board item and I put that someplace else in the house, or my mom can sell it to somebody who needs help. But there's no reason why we shouldn't have solid wood furniture if I am going to be fixing it up. So you can see here, one of the big problems is any surface that's not flat, then it would be a little bit more difficult to sand with a sander. Now here, this is a little jigsaw I'm putting together. I believe that's what the saw is called, a jigsaw. And I am going to be making new seats for the chairs. So I went to the local Restore, and here in my city, we've got a really nice Habitat for Humanity, and they are affiliated with the Restore, so we can get relatively inexpensive used furniture that needs to be fixed. But also they will sell pieces of this for like this wood. So this wood, when I bought it there, was about $2.86, and it was just the perfect size for these two pieces, these two seats. As I mentioned before on my videos, I probably should be more careful about how I measure things. I might have, a good idea could have been to get a piece of paper and then circle the chair itself and then put that paper on these woods instead of going back and forth trying to make sure which side looks better. However, you know, it's a learning curve. It's the first chair that I have upholstered for at least 20 years. And so a lot of the things that I've been doing lately, I just kind of say to myself, really? Why didn't you think this out? And also, this garage is my father's and mine. And my dad parks his car in the garage every night. So I have to clean everything up, and so I don't have my benches out. Like you can see, I'm putting the jigsaw down on the ground every single time. And that's because I'm maybe a little bit too lazy to get all of the tables out to be more professional. But it's good for squatting, I guess. Also, I can see on the right-hand side that the the tabletop area that is used for putting all your stuff to work on is a little bit messy as well. So you can see here, I'm kind of eyeballing where I think I should cut the seat. And if I would have just used a piece of paper and done it the right way first, it would have saved a lot of time, but nobody's perfect. And I liked the way it turned out, and I did end up keeping these items because in the upstairs bedroom where I'm currently living, I don't have any tables. So I thought these were adorable and I like the color, and so I thought, hey, I'll just keep it. So I sanded the seat so it was nice and smooth so nothing would be uncomfortable. And thankfully, my mother, she used to make a lot of doll clothes, and she would sew things a lot. So she has the padding that would go over this so it's more comfortable, as well as some fabric. I've got a younger sister, and she is very good at singing. She was in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoats, and she wore a beautiful coat. I don't think she was the main singer. I think she was one of the bad guys or something in it. So the fabric that you see coming up was from the coat that my mother made for her. It's two-sided. One of the sides is redder and one of the sides is more yellow. So I chose the red side because that's the kind of color scheme that I prefer. So you can see here that probably if I were